issue. The dichotomy, artificial dichotomy between public consumption and industrial consumption, I think it is so artificial. For the simple reason that we do not simply have enough energy. We therefore do not have the luxury to try to compartmentalize which bit should be heavy fuel and which bit should be renewable energy. We simply do not have that luxury because we do not have enough. My energy policy would be to ensure that we have as much energy as possible, create a diaspora bond of $1 billion, which Gambians in the diaspora would invest in to create a company that would invest what we have. We now have to make sure that we have enough energy to run this country and not to compartmentalize the little we have that would lead for greater deficit. We would ensure that we invest also in the grid that we have, because a lot of it is almost too old to transmit all the energy that we produce. That is the biggest problem why we have this energy deficit in this country.
Your time is up, but if you wish to address the issue of water infrastructure, a follow-up to Mr. Salas, you may please do so. 45 seconds, please.
Yes, thank you very much. Water is a big problem in this country, and it shouldn't be. The government is spending millions and millions buying pickup trucks, perambulating around the country looking for votes. When those pickups could have been, instead of buying pickups, we could have bought machines that will drill boreholes for a lot of these communities out there. The problem is a simple one. Are we investing in water for the local communities that could not afford it? We are not. If government were to invest, say, buy 5 drilling machines for each region, we would have solved the problem. And I know water could be an issue in the future, but...
Your time is up, please, sir.
Thank you.
We now go into rebuttals. Mr. Salah, you have 45 seconds, please.
I'll start where he ended. So where will the money come from to provide all that drilling for the population? That's what we are saying. He is coming back to the argument. There are people who cannot afford, and you cannot allow them to die. We're saying create a system, create equalization grants, provide each village, each ward with the funds necessary for project implementation. That's what they are saying. You calculate all this, you raise the resources, you push to build up a more productive base in order to have the sovereign wealth to be able to help the communities. That's what they are saying. In terms of energy also, how will people afford the energy by building $1 billion company?
The time is up, please, sir. Thank you. Mr. Fall, over to you. Your rebuttal, 45 seconds, please, sir.
We have a lot of similar policies, but the twist and the angle is different. His is from the years... I mean, with all due respect, I'm not saying that to create fun. I am making...
It's fun. In fact, they should laugh. Everybody should laugh.
No. I am not doing that. All I'm saying is the angle is different. His is socialist, mine is capitalist. And there is, it's just like Nokia 310 and iPhone 13 Pro.
Mr. Fall, your time is up. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Salah. Can we have some order in the hall, please? One of the rules is that there should be no such thing, really. Mr. Salah, thank you. Mr. Fall, thank you for answering the questions. I will now hand over to my co-moderator to take us through the next session.
Fourth thematic area is health. And I'm starting with you, Mr. Fall. You have 90 seconds to answer this question. And that is to say, the type of healthcare system the electorate yearn for is one that is reliable, accessible, timely, and affordable. We want to know, under a government led by you, what you would do to institute strategies that would replace or enhance the current health system in a manner that would cover every Gambian in a more comprehensive and integrated manner.
The health sector in this country is practically dead or non-existent. What we have of hospitals are, in fact, hospices where people go to die. And this must change. Women die because there are no gloves. Women die because there's no blood. Women die because power failure. Women die because there are no doctors. Women die because there are no medicine. Growing up, Senegal used to come here for medical help. Now it's the reverse. We have to change that. In order to change that, we have to have massive investment in the health sector. And the investment has to be in the infrastructure, in the personnel, and the healthcare givers. All three segments, we need massive investments in it. I will make sure that we revamp the health sector in several ways. And we can get the money if we are serious about it. You see, there is so much pork that the government is dishing out on a daily basis. $2.5 billion is going on duty-free. They are not going to the poor person in Dingirai or to the village market in Mansajang. They are going to well-able Gambians who are rich. We have to cut that and invest that money into the healthcare sector. The insurance that we have is not an insurance that covers the people. We should have a national health insurance system that covered everybody.
All right, we are staying with that. Mr. Sala, I'll come back to you. It's a follow-up. You have 45 seconds to answer this, Mr. Fall. We are still interested in how you would implement this, how you would revamp the health sector of the country, some of the strategies you would implement to the latter.
It's all a function of good leadership, proper management, and resources. The resources are there. Even if you cut all the waste that is going on in government, you would have a lot of money that could be put on this. In fact, we have $2.2 billion that is going to subsidize institutions that exist only to pay salaries to themselves. And if we cut all those things, $5 billion would be available. You cut the money going to President's office by $500 million. You have $5-point-something billion available that could help to fund some of these programs, including the health sector. And with insurance, more money would be available. So this is doable.
All right, Mr. Sala, thank you so much. Over now to you, Mr. Fall, I beg your pardon. Over now to you, Mr. Sala. And then on the Adoy-led government, we want to know what strategies you would institute that would replace or enhance the current healthcare system, one that would cover everyone comprehensively in an integrated manner, and one that would ensure reliable, accessible, affordable, and timely healthcare service delivery in the country.
Well, health has 4 components: preventive, curative, rehabilitative, and restorative. You see people suffer burns. You need to help them restore their skin. It's absence in the Gambia. We'll ensure that that happens. Accidents, we'll ensure that that happens. That's a principal target. You look at rehabilitative, you see people not having wheelchairs, not having mobility aids, completely abandoned. They cannot even do their work. So we will ensure that there is a proper rehabilitation facilities to be able to facilitate those people, accompanying them to be restored to proper health. You have the curative dimension. We are saying it should be community-centered. There should be a primary stage, a secondary stage, and tertiary stage. Primary stage involves the village. We should ensure that the villages themselves are trained to be proper birth attendants, and to look at certain basic things like diabetes, etc. You'll be able to test it and save lives very quickly. But then at the village level, you can move to the district level where you have a major health center or a district hospital that will be treating all the issues, and will staff the place with the appropriate doctors and nurses to be able to render services. We also have the regional hospitals, which will be referral hospitals. That's how we intend to structure the health system.
All right, Mr. Sala, I'm staying with you. It's a follow-up question. You have 45 seconds still to answer this. We want to look at the issue of affordable health care service in the country. and that of accessible healthcare service in the country. We want you to help us understand how a Doyle-led government would
prevent those things that are preventable in terms of the health and illnesses that we suffer today. We will also introduce the concept of the community participating in at least dealing with its little health problems by ensuring that the community will be able to identify the illnesses that appear within a year to the epidemiological units to know which illnesses appear in a village, in a district, in a region. Therefore, the drugs that will be bought will be, the priority will be given to those drugs.
Mr. Saleh, thank you so much. Over now to you, Mr. Fowle. Reactions to Mr. Saleh's comments.
I think that we have to be serious about health care and bring insurance that would cover everybody in this country. If we don't do that, we would never have all the resources necessary to pay for our health care bill. Otherwise, it would be the paracetamol hospitals that we have around the country where they dish out paracetamol for almost every ailment. We have to invest in the infrastructure. There are not enough hospital beds. We have to invest in medication. We have to invest in caregivers. We have to invest in doctors. There is no reason why all the Gambian doctors working abroad cannot assist us through video conference consultations and all that. So there is a lot we can do.
Your time is up, I'm afraid. Over now to you, Mr. Saleh.
Health technology is fundamental. That's why many people live here to go to Senegal. We must ensure that that comes to an end by identifying what we need and prioritize in accessing them to the country. It is also significant to bear in mind that already we have passed a bill, I'm a member of the National Assembly, to help establish the health insurance scheme. So that is nothing new. So it is already institutionalized. And my friend is constantly mentioning communism, socialism. I don't understand why the colleague continues to do this. Because we have a state, and the state is a centralized state based on a constitution, and nobody comes and overthrow that constitution.
All right.
So how can you talk about communism?
Time is up, I'm afraid. We will leave it there. We have another question, and starting with you, Mr. Saleh. We want to look at the regulatory health policies that the Doyle-led government would design and implement to ensure a standardized health sector in the country.
Every service must deliver according to standard. And if you want quality, there must be a regulatory authority that supervises service delivery. We are saying in all sectors of society, all government departments, all areas of infrastructural development and public enterprises, there must be a regulatory authority that will annually present a report to the executive and to parliament to show whether those institutions established are delivering services according to purpose, that they are accessible, affordable, and ensuring quality. That's what we intend to ensure. That comes to institution building. And we are talking about a government. So the government is designed to establish institutions, and those institutions are designed to deliver service because according to Section 26 of the Constitution, every Gambian is entitled to public service. And those who are restricting access to public service should not manage governments because they will be violating the Constitution of the Republic. It says on Section 26, all services should be accessible equally to all Gambians. And we will ensure that that happens, and we will ensure that it is of quality by ensuring this regulatory authority where people can lodge complaint, and we will monitor them at the level of the executive and national assembly to see that they are functioning according to purpose.
And so, Mr. Saleh, I'm staying with that part, that is the regulatory authority. We've seen laws being enacted, we've seen regulatory bodies in place, but still the implementation part remains a challenge. We are focused on the health sector now. We want to know what extra miles a Doyle-led government would do to ensure that laws and regulatory measures in the health sector are upheld.
So with immediacy, the executive will look at its own laws and ensure that the money provided for the rendering of services is delivered according to the purpose, and will be very blunt with a regulatory authority that is established to ensure that that budget is implemented to be able to render proper services. Of course, it will be inadequate. So we will look at the inadequacy based on resource generation. So resource reallocation as well as resource generation will be utilized to be able to bridge the gap. Yes, bridge the gap. So that's what we intend to do.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Sala. And just a quick reminder to you and Mr. Fal, there is a timer here you can see. You could equally be shifting your attention to it so that we don't cut you unexpectedly. The same question, the initial question, you have 90 seconds to answer this. We want to know the health regulatory policies you would put in place to ensure a standardized health sector.
I would break it down to my senior, Honorable Sala, that in fact there is a regulatory authority. There is the Medical and Dental Association, which has the responsibility to ensure quality delivery of medical services in this country. There is a bit of a lacuna that is not controlled, and that is the traditional practitioners. I have seen a recent document on the issue of treatment for HIV/AIDS, in which an effort was made to also regulate tradi practitioners who are engaged in HIV/AIDS treatment. That is not enough. We need a more robust regime for that. But really, for the purposes of medical practices, that is already regulated. What we should be talking about is to ensure more robust enforcement of the rules. If you go to the provinces, there are a lot of charlatans and quacks portraying themselves as doctors and selling medicine, and nobody is doing anything about it. That is the bit that needs to be attacked and dealt with. Also, the traditional practitioners who think that they have panaceas and can cure all sorts of diseases, maybe including death, these are the people we have to deal with to ensure that what happened in the Gambia from State House would not happen again. People being given poison in the name of drugs.
And so, Mr. Fal, I'm staying with that, I beg your pardon, and that is the issue of addressing the lapses that exist in the regulatory health policies. How would you address this, and how would you ensure that these policies that are in place, these regulatory bodies, deliver up to expectation?
I think the problem is not with the existence or lack thereof of regulatory bodies. It's a question of how do we plug that donut? How do we plug that hole dealing with traditional practitioners? The official system does not understand the traditional practice very well. We have examples in Senegal where they are embraced. Traditional practitioners are embraced and they're making efforts to bring them into the mainstream. That is what we have to do. We have to have an office that would deal specifically with that. And it has to be staffed with people who understand both worlds, otherwise there would be disaster.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Fal. Over now to you, Mr. Sala, for your rebuttals.
We are saying that a new government must know the nature and characteristics of the system it is inherited. First and foremost, we'll create a commission that within 3 months, it will be able to identify all the gaps and make recommendations how to address them. And every recommendation given will be implemented, including our own conception of how to address the problem. We are talking about the second element he was mentioning, traditional medicine. To me, there is no traditional medicine. In fact, that is derogatory. Medicine is medicine. Why do we allow other people to call it tradition? Medical science is medical science. Anybody who has the knowledge, so all we need to do is to identify those who are really curing people.
Mr. Sala, your time is up, I'm afraid. We will leave it there. Mr. Fal, your reactions, please.
I am really surprised and clearly astonished that Mr. Sala would suggest that there should not be any separation. In medical practice, there are standards and institutions that are responsible for ensuring that all sorts of treatment work. And that happened in 2007 until 2017, when Jammeh claimed he could cure HIV/AIDS, would recur again, and we can do nothing to stop it.
All right, Mr. Fal, thank you so much. And we have a final question. that will stay with you.
No rebuttal.
I beg your pardon?
No.
I'm afraid.
No. Mr. Salah has had his rebuttal.
Well,
he's gone twice. He's gone twice.
All right. We will leave it there. I'm aware of that. And then we are moving to the original question. I'm staying with you.
Thank you.
I saw his hand up, and I must have to listen to him and see what he had to say.
Now I am following the time.
That's well noted. All right. So the final question, Mr. Fall. We want to know what the country's healthcare system will look like under your government.
All Gambians would have access to medical health services and quality medical health services for that matter. Every region in this country would have 2 referral hospitals, and they would have clinics dotted here and there around the country depending on population centers. And believe me, we can do it. We've spent almost $1 billion by this executive in a re-election bid. That money could have been used to build $110 million hospitals or clinics around the country. So it is misplaced priority. In a government that I lead, we would put the money where it must go. It must go to the health care of the people. We would build hospitals that are fit for purpose and not hospices. We would ensure that there are adequate medical doctors who would take care of the people. There is a lot of internet now in the country and abroad and in the provinces. Gambian doctors practicing abroad could also help by providing virtual consultations and would be able to help advance our medical service delivery in this country. We can do it only if we put our priorities where they should be. If we invest the money in it and we ensure that there is insurance that covers everybody and not just a handful of people, there should be enough money in the system to help us do it.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Fall. Over now to you, Mr. Salah. How will the country's health sector look like under your government?
Well, health education will be given a priority. We'll make sure that there is negotiation with the MRC to be able to build an institution for tropical medicine, and it will be let's say, a working hospital. And that institution should be able to help build the other institutions in terms of educating nurses and doctors at a very high level. That is a priority. We also need to build up an infrastructure where we'll be able to do much investigation, much research, to be able to produce some of the drugs that we need to cure our people. So we'll be able to mobilize Gambians of competence to work in that area so that we'll be able to facilitate that. We'll give priority to assuming the technology that is necessary to be able to do the testing that we do in other countries. But primarily also, we'll have a primary, secondary, and tertiary phase of health, where each village will be able to have a mental health center, each district a district hospital, each region regional hospital, and they'll be responsible for serving. But we will ensure that education, health education, takes place in the school system, in the villages, everywhere, to ensure that we have preventive health and move into a very efficient curative health system, into a rehabilitative one and restoration one. That's what people should expect from us.
Thank you. Over now to you, Mr. Fall. 45 seconds, I beg your pardon, for reactions.
Well, I don't think it is realistic to have a health center for every village in this country. I doubt whether there are hundreds of villages in this country. We simply cannot afford it. What we need to do is to have an efficient system for delivery of quality health services around the country. We should have a good network of ambulances that would ensure that people are ferried, are driven to the various health centers. But to suggest that a health center for every village, I think that is promising too much that anyone can possibly deliver under this situation, especially in a socialized healthcare system suggested by Mr. Salah. Right. It would not work.
Thank you so much, Mr. Fall. Mr. Salah, your reactions, please.
Well, it is very clear that what I have said is that there will be a minor health center in every village, and we'll have a major health center in the bigger villages, a district hospital in all districts, regional hospitals in all regions. That's what we have said. I don't know why he's saying that that's not workable. Then he wants to exclude our population from health delivery. Then what type of president are you going to be? Nobody should be excluded, that is what he said. Everybody, that's it. The colleague is a prominent lawyer. Section 26 of the Constitution said that there must be equal access to all services by the population. How can you exclude anyone?
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Sala. And then I'm coming back to Mr. Fall. 90 seconds. We just want to deal with one important aspect that is of immense interest to the electorate, and that is how to ensure timely response to health emergencies in the country. How would your government tackle this issue?
Well, I think I have seen the reason why socialism has failed in many countries around the world, because they chew too much, they try to chew too much, and it can't work. In a system led by us, we would ensure that there are hospitals, enough hospitals dotted around the country. But we would also ensure that people in the villages would have access to these hospitals. To suggest that one can build a medical facility for every village in this country is just a fanciful dream in my view. It cannot happen. We don't have those resources. And it's absolutely unnecessary. What we can have is a system of collecting sick people and taking them to hospitals. And that we can do with a good network of ambulances. Once that is available, the problem would be solved. But to suggest that one would build, in fact, if you build the health infrastructure in those villages, you would not have the doctors. No wonder. I went to Kuntawur the other day. They are realistic. We have to operate with pragmatism and not with dogmatism or idealism. We have to ensure that we do things properly. We have to cut our coat according to our size. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Fall. Over now to Mr. Sala, the same question.
Since my colleague preferred to be unfair, I will not save him. This my colleague prosecuted me in 1994, parties from issuing any political statement. I am what? The dictator, believing in centralized power. I have said it and he's heard it, that this is a country with a constitution. And nobody can become president and violate that. What we are debating is on policies. Since he cannot deal with the policies, he goes into that common saying that people who have no ideas, who are bankrupt of ideas, usually do, they are communists. What is a communist? Where has communists exist? Communism is a country without a state. It's a stateless country that has never existed in this world. So when you talk about Soviet Union, it's a government. Look at our manifesto. We are talking about monarchs establish what you call systems that coerce people. And we are going to eliminate that state and create the cooperative state.
All right, Mr. Salam, sticking to my earlier mentioned question, how you would ensure, a Doyle-led government would ensure timely response to health emergencies across the country. It is a cause for concern.
Well, thank you very much. That is the key issue. We are saying each village should have a health center. Who can say that you cannot train? We have already trained traditional birth attendants. Who cannot train those attendants so that the death that we are suffering in the villages from women being pregnant and not being able to deliver, who says that cannot be done? Who can say that you can train people in the use of all those things where you can test hypertension and diabetes and help manage it until the person can get to a hospital? We are saying force aid hospitals in the village. You go to, and if there are bigger hospitals, if there are bigger villages, then it should be a major one, so bigger infrastructure, more people trained.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sala. Over now to you, Mr. Fall, for your reactions.
I am surprised at the personal attack on me by my senior, Mr. Sala. Maybe he misunderstands the role of a prosecutor with the role of a clerk. When Mr. Salah was prosecuted, I had just graduated from law school. I had just come to the country. I was not a lawyer. I was just holding a briefcase for the lawyers in the office. But I'm happy that Mr. Salah mistook me for the prosecutor. Maybe I must have dressed very well on that occasion. But
All right, you just have 4 seconds to go.
Yeah, let me leave it at that. Some things are better not answered.
All right, thank you so much. And I'm starting with you again, Mr. Salah. The issue of capacity building in terms of training healthcare personnel in the country and equipping them with the requisite skills and knowledge is also dominating the discourse in the country. What would a Doyle-led government do to address this gap?
We have seen the effort that was made to try to address the gap in terms of teachers by having in-service training and helping those people at least to have basic service delivery so that they'll be able to render services at different levels. And we build up the system, the structure, so that more doctors will be needed at the district level and then more doctors at the regional level. But you would have those who can manage the illness. It is managing the illness so that it will not get worse. If you go up country now, the people will tell you, we put our pregnant women on horse carts, on donkey carts, before we arrive at Bansang, that major referral hospital, the person is dead. How do you address that? So this is what we are saying, that you must have an infrastructure suited for each level and train those people to be able to address them. And you can do so through in-service initially, as you really train those who are going to be specialized. That is how we are going to address it. We are going to study not only that, we have said that we must maintain a record of the major illnesses that are found in the villages so that in buying drugs, you will be specialized on handling those major illnesses. So everything must be documented. A database must be kept. And that's how we intend to handle the health problems by identifying what they are and how to address them.
Thank you so much, Mr. Salah. And then Mr. Fall, just hold on a moment. I would just like to remind the audience that we had mentioned a rule here that laughter or any sort of that will not be entertained while the arguments are ongoing. And then we just want to urge all of you to abide by that as we move on with this debate. Thank you so much. Mr. Fall, the initial question was how you would ensure a highly skilled and trained healthcare sector in the Gambia.
I had identified 3 different levels. You would have the specialists, you have the general practitioners, and the caregivers. We need to ensure adequate training for people of all categories. We should also engage the traditional practitioners. I know I had once contracted jaundice. While I was in university, I came to Gambia. I was not treated at the hospital. I was referred to a woman in Bakau who would give you a substance and it would immediately clear it. These are type of people who we can also embrace and bring them into the fold. But we must have standards in order to ensure that people are not being poisoned instead of being treated. We could identify a network of traditional practitioners whose treatments can be certified through medical means. They are incorporated into the system. We also have to put in massive resources to train people, especially at the lower level, the caregivers and the first responders. We need to ensure that the first responders they have all the equipment and the know-how of handling patients. A lot of stroke patients in this country die simply because the first responders don't know how to handle them. We have to invest massively in that. And then train as many people as possible. We now have a medical school. We should be able to do it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Fall. Mr. Salah, your reactions, please.
Well, he misinterpreted what I was saying when I said that we should abandon the word traditional medicine, because whatever cures is science. But they have not gone to university, they have not gone through training, so they are paramedical sciences. And there should be registration where at the level of the state, They will provide a unit at the medical services that will be able to assess people who will apply, check what they have done, confirm, and then register them as paramedical. That's what we are saying, and that's what we are going to do. We are not asking anybody who can cure anybody to be excluded. We are saying let's create a database scientifically to know whether they are really curing people. Why we talk about Gambia and
your time is up, please. Thank you. Over now to you, Mr. Fall, your reactions.
Well, I am glad that Mr. Sala embraces my ideas. There have to be standards. We cannot just allow every Tom, Dick, and Harry perambulating around the country willy-nilly, working as quacks or charlatans claiming to be doctors. We have a lot of them in this country. So we have to have standards for traditional practitioners, ensure that their services do work, and we have a system of registration to ensure that they are also monitored and supervised. If we do not do that, what happened in this country would happen again. People would come and pose as doctors who can cure certain ailments, and they don't know anything or what they are doing. In order to avoid that, we have to have good oversight and proper standards.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Fall. And the final question now, I would start with Mr. Sala. We've talked about your policies, toilet policies, what you would do to ensure that the country has a quality and accessible alongside affordable healthcare service delivery in the country. But one issue that is of a burning issue in the country currently is the issue of maternal mortality. We want to know, when voted into office, it's a priority, what your government would do to address this situation.
Women are carrying two burdens, burden of production and burden of reproduction. If you do not protect them, you are sacrificing the very future of a nation. That is going to be a priority. That's why in matter of government, we are saying we must even have in cabinet equal number of men and women so that women will take care of the major problems that this country is going to face. We are going to ensure that at the level of the village, the competence must be there, prenatal, to take care of that woman so that she will be freed from the farm before birth, childbirth. Freed from the farm, just like freed from offices 9 months after childbirth. We are saying there will be 3 months leave for those who are working in our sectors, both public and private, and 9 months leave after birth. So this is to protect women and mothers from the type of illness and from the type of death that they are suffering now. That is our policy. It's already in our manifesto. Read it. Very progressive. How we will accompany both father and mother will accompany the child, who is the future of the nation, so that the nation will protect that child and protects its future. By ensuring that even after 9 months, the father will be given half work so that they'll be able to accompany their child, and 6 months leave to accompany their child to nursery school.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sala. Over now to you, Mr. Fall. A government under your watch, the priorities at stake are many, but the issue under the health sector regarding maternal death is of a burden. What would you do to address this?
I am glad that you have repeated the question, because this is about maternal mortality. And the problem, in order to address this, we have to know what the problem is. Where does the problem lie? The problem lies with lack of access to health, to the necessary health facility, timely access. The other problem is lack of facilities such as gloves and things that would help the caregivers to ensure safe delivery. The other problem is the lack of blood. The other problem is the care that is needed as immediately or after delivery. The other is the biggest problem is the infections that happen. All these things cause death. We have to invest heavily in order to be able to deal with these problems. In order to deal with the problem of access, increased supply of facilities and increased supply of ambulances could help reduce that problem. Now many women die because they are carried on horsebacks or motorcycles, and they deliver on the way, and a lot of them die. If you have ambulances located strategically and they are abundant, that will solve the problem. Gloves. Why should anybody die because there are no gloves? I can't understand for the life of me why this government must allow that to happen. Blood. We must invest heavily in
Well, we have emphasized that at the village level with difficult birth, and at the regional level, facilities are there. So how to manage the birth at the village level is crucial, that's primary. All the knowledge must be there for that birth attendant to help that mother. And the knowledge will be given to that birth attendant in every village. Then the ambulance will be there, ready to move the person to the district hospital with immediacy to be able to deal with difficult childbirth. That is how we intend to lower child
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Sala. Over now to you, Mr. Fall.
I really wonder how a village birth attendant would be able to solve the problem of lack of blood for the woman who really needs one. I don't know how that village woman would be able to deal with the issues of infection. You see, what we need, these village birth attendants would be just mere stopgap measures. We are talking about solutions and not stopgap measures. Ambulances or health facilities should be available and accessible to pregnant women so that they would receive professional care as and when they need them. And these stopgap measures are not a solution. Thank you.
Mr. Fall, Mr. Sala, thank you so much. That brings an end to this fourth thematic area. We'll go for a quick break. It's 5 minutes. We'll be back here to continue the last thematic session. Thank you all.
yaa ngi bëgg a yàgg ci dëkk bi sa holiday yi gudd na lool sax vacances yi yàgg na waaye dama ne naa ñibbisi ci sama réew investir wax nga dëgg sa saafara man maa ko yor jugal ñu dem topp ma ci sama waaj dangaa bëri pexe de topp ma
xam ngeen Gambia léegi dafa open loolu moo waral global properties jóg jaay la kër doo manqué courant doo manqué ndox da ngay am pôle maanaam piscine sa disposition di nga am budget bi sécurité 24 hours te soo bëggee investir aussi nga mën a investir sa réew jënd kër di ko nuyu hôtel yi na xam baax na waaye nag am na gan yoo xam ni dañoo bëgg bu ñu ñëwee ci réew nekk à l'aise nekk ci bërëb boo xam ni dañu am seen waañ bu ñu bëggee togg seen lekku dëkk dañu am seen salle bu mag am seen néegu bopp am seen lépp loolu yëpp ak global properties mën na nekk.
jërëjëf def leen ñi man ñëw leen global properties ngeen jënd seeni kër aar seen ëllëg ak bu seen njaboot.
DK Telecom, Gambia's leading and most efficient internet service provider, is 100% Gambian owned. Even after 3 years of service, our focus has never changed. It's all about our customers and giving them value for money. Looking for ultra-fast internet speed? We've got it. Looking for good service? We are it. We are DK Telecom. At DK Telecom, we provide you with ultra-fast yet very affordable and reliable internet service specially tailored for your businesses, offices and homes. Our very skilled technicians and friendly customer service agents work round the clock to make sure we give you the internet service you desire. This is the 21st century and no one should struggle to get an affordable and reliable internet service. We believe that Gambians deserve the best and DK Telecom is the best. Join the DK Telecom family today. Call us on 8844 9544 2944 or 5144 You can send an email to info@dktelecom.gm or better still follow us on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter at DK Telecom Limited. DK Telecom is proud to be associated with the presidential debate as the official internet service provider.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the 2021 presidential debate here at the Salada Caraba International Conference Center in Bigelow, and it's organized by the Commission on Political Debates. It's the first ever presidential debate to be staged in the Gambia. And at this juncture, I'll hand over to my co-moderator, Seiko Jame, to lead you into the final thematic area. Seiko.
Thank you very much, Madam Co-Moderator. Welcome back, Mr. Sala. Welcome back, Mr. Fall. We are now into the final round of this debate, and probably there is no better topic than to talk about the economy. And we're going to start with you, Mr. Fall. Election for presidential is December 4th, and it is happening at a time that the pandemic is visibly receding. We need to build or rebuild the economy. How are you going to build or rebuild the economy, and to do so in a resilient way, given how vulnerable our economy is, particularly to external shocks?
Thank you. Forbes magazine has listed Gambia as second to last country for worst to do business in the world. It means we beat only Chad, which is a country at war. It means to say that this is the most terrible place to do business. Are we surprised that foreign direct investment is not coming here? Are we surprised that foreign direct investment is massively and heavily going into Senegal? Because we are doing things badly, I intend to change that and ensure that we have a business-friendly environment that would allow people to do business free of the massive corruption that impedes business in this country. We would ensure that we look at our tax laws again and simplify them and ensure that there is greater collection of taxes than is happening today. There are far too many loopholes and very lax enforcement. We would ensure that we digitize our financial system, insist on greater transparency, and that would reduce corruption. We would ensure fiscal discipline in this country. There is a lot of waste going on, and we would issue diaspora bonds to help us finance some of the projects that would help spur economic growth.
Mr. Sala, the same question to you, please, sir, in 90 seconds.
The economy has three elements. Agriculture contributes just about 19% of GDP. Industry, 20%. Services, 55%. The rest are the sectors. If you look at the agriculture, we can produce all the rice we need, spending 2 billion to 4 billion annually just to import rice. We're spending 29 million on potatoes, and we can produce the potatoes here. 108 million on onions. We can produce the onions here. In terms of the edible oil, we are actually importing 1.2 billion, which our granules can be transformed into edible oil. We can produce it here. To just cereals, we are investing 2 billion in importation. We can produce this here. Milk products, 500 million. We can produce it here. So everything that we are importing, leading to in 2017, when the Barrow government came into being, to 24 billion deficit, are things that we can produce. We are going to focus on that, expand the productive base, and in that sense, we'll reduce the importation and then work towards exportation. Look at our ocean. We are capable of having fishing trailers to harness our waters.
Your time is up, but I have a quick follow-up there. Mr. Fall, I'm going to give you the same opportunity before the rebuttals, please. You were talking about import-export, and the trade deficits in the country are huge. You would want to elaborate on that? You were just on that.
Precisely so. Jawara left a trade deficit of about 1.4 billion. Gambia left a trade deficit of 11.9 billion. Now we are going to the 30 billion in trade deficit as Barrow ends his government. No effort is being made to expand our export. Export falls below 1 billion and moves just 1 point something billion. 3-point-something billion if the export trade is facilitated. So we are exporting nothing. We are not a producer country. So that must be eradicated. We aim to eradicate that. That's why we are talking about these two financial institutions, a cooperative bank and a sovereign wealth investment fund. We will get those people who want...
Your time is up on that. Mr. Fall, quickly, 45 seconds on trade deficits. How do you intend to bridge the gap?
Clearly, the policies I have just outlined would help create a lot of savings for government. And I've just mentioned two issues previously. We could save $5 billion by just ending the subsidies and ending the duty waivers, the unnecessary duty waivers. Office of the President, we spend the budget approved for Office of the President for 2022 is $677 million. I have raised this concern. What are they going to do with that money? We could just remove 600 million from that, and we would still be sending to Office of the President more than we are spending to sports. So that money should be available.
Your time is up, Mr. Fall. Thank you. Mr. Salah, your rebuttal, please, in 45 minutes.
Well, I don't think my colleagues is experienced in running a government. In running a government is a budget. You will see it written because we don't have the time to do that. You will see the Office of the President, personal emoluments, and all other breakdowns, fuel, lubricants, etc., etc. Those are the things you look at to come up with a budget. I would have asked him which area of the budget he was going to cut, because that way maybe he should be in National Assembly to help in doing that, because we have that power to cut down the budget. And I know the National Assembly members have been very vigorous in cutting down the budget. So essentially, we must look at the issue of managing a state. And when people, I hate to use this word.
Mr. Salah, your time is up, I'm afraid. Mr. Fall, your rebuttal quickly, 45 minutes.
Well, I want to remind Mr. Salah that I probably have more experience than him working for the government. Our CVs are there for everyone to examine. I have been parliamentary counsel for this country with responsibility of writing the laws, including the appropriation bill for the country, and therefore I have a good grasp of how these things are done. But what I am trying to say here is, we can make a lot of savings through this. There is a lot of waste that is going on. Maybe he's sensitive to the fact that he has not done enough scrutiny of the president's allocation. But I think it is way too much. $4 million to charter flights, do we need that?
Your time is up, Mr. Fall. And we are going to the next question, and we're going to start with you, Mr. Fall. Thank you. And you have 90 seconds to answer this question. What steps are you going to take to ensure that the jobs that you will create are going to be inclusive of particularly women and youth?
I have said publicly on my launching that we would ensure gender balance in my cabinet. 50% would be women. I'm happy that Mr. Salah also embraces similar values. I have also said that there would be positions reserved for youth. This would be policy that would be retained by all aspects of government. We would ensure inclusiveness, we would ensure diversity, and we would also ensure regional and gender balance. This is a time where the Gambia needs everybody. For me, the only requirements would be qualification, experience, and integrity of the person. Once those three boxes are ticked, we would ensure that there would be equality across the board. So in a government that I lead, discrimination would end. In a government that I lead, regionalism would end. In a government that I lead, favoritism would end. In fact, I have always said that for us, we choose knowledge over ignorance. We choose pragmatism over dogmatism and idealism. We choose experience over neophytes. And these are the principles that would govern our government, and it would run across the board from top to bottom.
Your time is up. Thank you. Mr. Salah, how would you ensure that women and youth in particular are not left out in the jobs that are to be created?
Fundamentally, the constitutions give every Gambian the right to be the sovereign authority that determines government. And that authority, when entrusted, must be exercised to promote general welfare. So women must participate equally. So in cabinet, equal representation. At the National Assembly, we will work. Of course, we will have some legal instruments change in order to ensure proportional representation and move towards that equalization through proportional representation. At the level of the councils is the same. We will move into the public service and ensure that we obey that law of equalization by giving priority to women and ensuring that really we provide the facilities necessary to provide some element of equality. Just as Section 15 of the Women's Act says, that we must give special measures taken to put the women to an advantage just to ensure that there is equality. We only do not do that, but we are moving to the level of girls and boys in the school system being trained in the same way, nurtured in the same way to acquire knowledge and skills and values. That is where the equalization in fact comes, in the change of mentality and mindset. And we will continue at the level of...
Thank you, sir. Mr. Flowers, your rebuttal in 45 seconds, please, sir.
I want to believe that in that regard, our policies are very similar. There isn't much separating us, except that for us, we added other values. It's not just ensuring parity. It is ensuring that there is excellence in the system. It's ensuring that there is meritocracy in the system. Also, it's ensuring that there is pragmatism in the way we do things. It's not just about creating an equal society. That is socialist engineering. We are not talking about creating an equal society necessarily. We are talking about creating a just society. And there's a fundamental difference in the two.
Thank you, sir. Sir Salah.
Well,
45 seconds, your report.
The Constitution already answers us for every president, that whoever becomes a minister must be somebody with the professional qualification and experience. So I don't know where the difference lies, which he says is what they believe in and what we do not believe in. Everybody who must occupy a post must have the professional capacity and experience to be able to do so. So there is no negation of capacity. We are also saying that moving to the level of giving special measures is not about equality percents. It is ensuring that discrimination is reversed, and we are ready to reverse that discrimination.
And thank you so much. Just the next question has to do with that, in fact, but in a more elaborate way. And that's to you, we're starting with you, Mr. Salah. In 90 seconds, here is the question. What kind of governance and institutional reforms will you embark on to ensure sustainable and inclusive economic development?
We've seen that throughout the monarchical era, and colonialism is part of that, the state has been an instrument of coercion. And that machinery has not been nullified. We are going to nullify that. We are going to ensure that there is community security, and the community will mimic the state, where community institutions, the village institutions, will have its security apparatus and will be recognized, and will build the law for that. Then our police force will turn into a mobile force who will be called upon to come and assist these community services to be able to handle any crime. But we are also going to ensure that they are well trained and nurtured, so that we are not going to allow any use of handcuffs in this country, no detention in horrible cells. We are going to look at all the cells and transform them, because one is presumed innocent until proven guilty. So nobody is going to be treated like a criminal before going to the court case. And we are going to give more emphasis to community service than actually being incarcerated. That is the type of state. In terms of the security, the military force, look at the Navy. It is capable of having a productive base to have fishing vessels to harness our fish. We earn from it. It will maintain the Navy and will also ensure that we export in order to have sovereign national wealth. The Army will be transformed into a workforce, a disciplined workforce, where they will build our wharfs.
Your time is up, Mr. Salah, but I have a follow-up for you, if you wouldn't mind, really. I mean, this system that you've just described, how would it ensure fiscal discipline, particularly in the public sector?
We are seeing regulatory authorities are going to be built, operated by human beings of integrity. And they will ensure that there is proper monitoring to ensure that policies are implemented. There will be no compromise on that. You either deliver or you go. And there will be performance contract, and you will be rewarded for good service. We are also saying that the security apparatus will be transformed into a workforce so that our roads, the building of school structures, state structures, they'll be occupied in all these activities and they'll be trained for it. Now when a person comes from...
Thank you, sir. Your time is up. Mr. Fowle, over to you, if I may repeat the question. What kind of governance and institutional reforms will you embark on to ensure sustainable and inclusive economic development in the Gambia?
I just note before I answer that Mr. Salah had 90 minutes plus 45 minutes.
I will refer to you to give you additional 45 to answer the follow-up that yes.
All right, thank you very much. I just wanted clarification. Reforms are needed in this country, and it should start from the fundamental basis of our government, the Constitution. We all do know that the 1997 Constitution is a dictatorial constitution. It is a constitution that has enabled massive abuse of power in this country. We've spent $110 million dealing to come up with a new constitutional order that had been jettisoned. We would breathe new life into that constitution, and that would be the beginning of the reforms that we're going to make. But not only that, we would ensure that there's great transparency in government. And that is why I have earlier said that we would have a modernized system.
You are now into your 45 seconds.
But I haven't been given any, I haven't said anything. Mr. Salah had 90 seconds.
You have 90 seconds now. The time was running on 45. Can you correct that, please? On 45 first.
You have the first 45 you've responded to, and now you have 90 seconds to continue with the initial question. If you may want to repeat that, Seiko, once again.
Good. You may proceed, or you want me to ask the question?
Please proceed.
2 questions. One, the governance and institutional reforms that you will embark on to ensure sustainable and inclusive economic development. And the follow-up that I had asked Mr. Salah was, how would, whatever system that you're going to create, how will it address the issue of fiscal discipline, especially in the public sector?
Yes, the reforms we would make first would be the government architecture. We'd have to ensure that the constitution, a new constitution that is fit for purpose, is put in place. We would also ensure civil service reform, because the civil service is the vehicle for the delivery of all government programs. If it also is not fit for purpose, you have serious problems as we're seeing today. The civil service would also need serious reform. We would establish a civil service training academy which would help train people to do civil service work in the way it is understood in the modern era. Mr. Salah did talk about performance contracts. I know a thing or two about that. I wrote the performance contracts in 1995 for all the public corporations. These things could come back, but performance contracts are useless if there are no enforcement mechanisms or oversight institutions. We would ensure that those things exist. But principally, we would ensure that there is e-government. E-government would remove all the secrecy in government, ensure transparency, and that would also help to reduce the corruption in the country. Once that is done, government would begin to function properly. And if that is to that it's added people who, with integrity, people who are very qualified, then government begins to look like what it was when Gambia was prided as having the second best civil service in Africa.
Your time is up. Thank you so much, Mr. Fall. Mr. Salah, we come back to you with your rebuttal. You have 45 seconds, please, sir.
We have not been impressed by any government in this country since the independence. What is important now is constitutional reform, and we have said that we'll set up a commission of jurists to be able to look at the Constitution, confirming the sovereignty of the people as a key issue, a key drive. Putting our people together, unifying them, so that no sector of our country would be isolated. But fundamentally, our sea, our ocean, our land, our air, the Constitution must define it. The maritime zones must be well defined in the Constitution so that the Gambian people will know what they own. And government must protect that.
Thank you, sir. Your time is up. Well, that does it for Mr. Fall, it's been brought to my notice you've not had your rebuttal.
Yes. Thank you. And thank you, Madam, for...
You have 45 seconds, please.
Thank you. I think our maritime boundaries are defined. It's 12 nautical miles. That's it. It is settled. We do not need any new laws or studies to tell us where our boundaries are. I agree. We need to be able to protect our borders. We need to be able to protect our marine resources. Those are difficult to do at the moment. A government that I lead would also invest in that. We should invest also in creating factories that would produce these fisheries resources that would be brought back to shore. But that is a completely different topic, very big. We'll be happy to debate that issue again in the future. Your time is up, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Fall, and thank you, Mr. Salah. That does it for this session and for all the 5 areas that we've covered so far, from agriculture to infrastructure, to the economy, to education and health. Thank you. We're now going into the closing sessions, and I'll hand over to my co-moderator.
Gentlemen, now time to make your closing remark. And at this juncture, we will give you options. You can do your closing remarks in any language or languages you so wish to do so. And then start with you, Mr. Salah.
Thank you very much. This is not the type of debate I wanted to engage in. It's very combative. I expected something different. But then when personal assault comes, I will hit the person right in the face. And people must be careful. There is nothing in a republic that can turn a country into an ideological state. So all those people who are saying those words are misleading you. I am a member of the ACP OACP Parliamentary Assembly. I sit with European parliaments. They listen to me. People who are hoodwinking you that what they are saying reflect the ideas of Europe are deceiving you. Europe will speak for itself. Africa will speak for itself. But not these people who are misleading you to believe that when a particular party is in power, even Jammeh could not be isolated because of international politics. He was getting grants, pretending not to. He was getting loans, pretending not to. How many roads have been built by the European Union? So you must bear in mind that when you are running a government, now we should not talk about ideology because we have a constitution. And the honorable gentleman knows that. I was appointed as a minister when the coup took place and I rejected it. And when that happened, eventually they closed all chapters for political parties. I struggled against it. Whether briefcase lawyer or not, whatever, he was there among those people who were prosecuting me. That's what I'm saying, that because he should know, not because of prosecution, but he should know how I value democracy, how I value the republic. I've fought for it, I've lived for it, and I will die for it. We'll build the most democratic country in this country. That's what we intend to do. People should on board.
Thank you so much, Mr. Salah. No clapping, please. No clapping, please. We are violating a very important rule here. We can clap at the end of the session. There should be no clapping there should be no form of any remark. Please, let us abide by that. We are at the end of the session. Mr. Fowle, over to you. You have 2 minutes to make a closing remark.
Thank you very much. I am really surprised that Mr. Salah appears very angry. I must apologize if I have said anything that riled you up. That was never my purpose. It was a simple debate where we exchanged ideas, and I challenged some of your ideas. But let me tell you, Mr. Salah, I would not apologize for having views that are different from yours. Gone are those days when we are indoctrinated and caught in awe of some of the statements you have made. We have come of age, and we must free ourselves from that shackle of domination. We are now able to think for ourselves and look at things and not be awed by the language that is used, but rather we scrutinize the content of what is said. And I do not apologize for having capitalistic views, for I believe it is the system that would make the world run, and not archaic and dogmatic and old systems that did not even work where they were created, let alone in this country. So I'm not talking about ideology. I'm talking about practical ideas that would work in this country. And Mr. Salah, let me tell you, like you, many of us have also made sacrifices for this country. I have left a great deal to come and do this Truth Commission that is being talked about everywhere in the world. And it was a personal sacrifice. So we are all in this together. And I respect you for who you are. I respect you for what you have done for this country. But equally, you must respect other people for what they have done for their country. You do not have a greater love
Mr.
for this
Fowle,
country.
your time is up, please. We will leave it there.
Thank you.
No clapping, please. No clapping, please. We've not reached that session, please. Please, no clapping. Thank you so much, gentlemen. That brings an end to, we are not yet done. That brings an end to this edition of the 2021 presidential debate here at the South Dakar International Conference Center. And we really appreciate and thank you so much for taking time out of your busy campaign schedules to join us here this evening to be part of this program. And at this juncture, we would like you to acknowledge each other in whatsoever you would like to. Thank you. Thank you so much. And you may step forward for a photo session, please. Mr. Fowle, Mr. Salah, you may step forward to take pictures, please. Thank you. We just be calm and seated and allow them to take their photo session. You may applaud them as they take their picture as well. All right, thank you. And candidates, you may stand there, please, because we have remarks that will be made here by Mr. Fowle. You want to stay there, please? Mr. Salah, thank you so much. An official from the Inter-Party Committee now would come and... All right, we will have that session momentarily. But for now, again, I will just reiterate my point. We thank you so much. We are supposed to have 3 candidates this evening. Earlier, we understood we will not be having the rest of the 3 candidates, but until this 5 p.m., another candidate opted out of the debate. But we had a fruitful session, and we want to thank you so much. We wish you all the best in your quest to become the next president of the Republic of the Gambia, and we wish you a safe journey as you join your campaign team back in provincial Gambia to continue your campaign. Until then, it's bye from us, myself, Fatima Tassise, my co-moderator, Sekou Jammeh. Thank you all for coming to grace this occasion, and we are wishing and hoping that we'll have peaceful elections in this December. Thank you so much. All right. On over to Bakari, the Executive Director of the Commission on Political Debates, to make a statement. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much, Fatima and Sekou, and of course the debaters. We just have one more statement by the co-chair of the Inter-Party Committee. Honorable Nancy. Thank you very much. I actually will not take much of your time, but I think you will all agree with me that history has been written today by our two co-debaters in the person of the Right Honorable Halifa Sallah and the Right Honorable Halifa Ababakar Sallah and Esa Mbaifal. We appreciate your coming and we thank you for honoring this invitation. I want to say that history has been written by the two of you. Even whereas it was one individual coming to present what you have for this nation, I think Gambians should really appreciate what you have done. We want to thank you, and we will continue to promote your agenda, regardless of what will be the outcome of the December 4th presidential election. This is what the world have been anticipating. This is what Gambians have been anticipating for. And here you have written history, and you will leave an indelible ink in the political history of the Gambia, particularly trying to earn the democracy in which we are living today. On that note, on behalf of the National Democratic Institute, on behalf of UNDP, on behalf of the CPD, we appreciate the fact that we have members of the Diplomatic and Consular Corps coming to grace this unique occasion. The media, we thank you, because the world over is watching what is happening here. And my colleagues in the IPC, I think we said it, and it has been manifested once again, that having my colleague, the co-chair, take us through the operations of the IPC, today, Gambians and the world over are reaping the benefits of what it takes to have a seasoned individual in your midst to coach and mentor your operations. On that note, I want to say thank you very much, and we appreciate your coming. I have a written speech, but honestly, I am overwhelmed with the manner in which this debate has been handled by the moderators. I want to thank you as well for the manner in which you have handled the whole affairs. You have actually shown impartiality in the manner in which you moderated the session. We thank you immensely. On that note, I really don't have much to say, but once again, gentlemen, I am one of the people who really appreciate the manner in which you handled this debate, and we want to sincerely thank you and appreciate all that you did. We wish you all the best, and we wish each and everyone who have come to grace this very important occasion all the best. On that note, I thank you for your kind attention. Thank you so much, Honorable. Just before we conclude, finally, I just want to announce that one of our partners, called DK Telecom, have actually promised, and then they have delivered. Each of the participant debaters will be given a free internet for 3 months for your campaign. Thank you, DK Telecom. And the other one also is for the Commission on Political Debates to facilitate our communication process. So thank you everyone for coming, and then we wish you all the best. And we want to take photo, a group.